an amazing feast called a Supra, a dumpling eating lesson, and a bottle of wine at passport control. This week, we're in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. This is where food and travel come together here at the Destination Eat Drink podcast, as well as destinationeatdrink.com and on the Destination Eat Drink YouTube channel. And this week, we're changing your mind about eggplant, giving incredible toasts, and eating the best food in Tbilisi, the capital of the country of Georgia. But first, be sure to share the podcast with your friends and social media. It helps more foodie travelers find the show. And if you want to support the podcast, you can contribute to Destination Eat Drink at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And thank you very, very much. My guests this week are Tommo from Eat This Food Tours and Megsy from Food Fun Travel. They're a couple who've been to almost 100 countries between them and lived in places like Mexico, Romania, Thailand, and Portugal. But they fell in love with Georgia, were married there, and now have lived in Georgia for several years. Tommo and Megsy tell me about the Toastmaster tradition in Georgia that is so much more than just raising a glass and saying a few words. They also tell me about a restaurant that bases their menu on a 100-year-old cookbook and several traditional Georgian dishes. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Tommo from Eat This Food and Wine Tours, Megsy from foodfuntravel.com. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. Can't wait to talk Georgia with you.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, Brent. Yeah, glad to be here.
You know, you guys are well-traveled, and I just wanted to start this conversation with the reason why you guys decided to make Georgia your home.
It's a big question that we could do the 30-minute version where the whole podcast is just that, or we try and condense it into 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Let's do the short one.
Yeah. We've traveled to 95 countries in total between the two of us. We've been traveling full-time since 2013, and we were traveling before because we were working on cruise ships for a few years, which is where we actually met. And we both did a bit of travel before that as well. And we lived in quite a few countries like Mexico, Romania,
Portugal,
Thailand. Yeah. So yeah, Portugal as well, like yourself. I think you're in Portugal at the moment.
Yes.
So we've been around. We've tried a lot of different places. And we first came to Georgia in 2016 and were just incredibly surprised at how unique and hospitable the country was. And then we learnt about the wine history and this incredible 8,000 years of wine history. We loved the food as well. And this whole thing about being the oldest wine country in the world as far as archaeology shows, that just sort of sold it to us as well. And cost of living and other things were great, as that was a big influence as well. But yeah, it's sort of solidified for us just how fantastic it might be to live here. So we left after 6 weeks of being here and traveling around and going to lots of different places in Georgia. Then we came back in 2018 and we actually got married here in 2018, which is a whole other podcast if you want. Then in 2019, we came back again and decided to live here full time. And we've been here ever since. And that's when we set up the tour company, sort of end of 2019.
Perfect.
That's a shortish version.
Yeah. As a person who's living, who left the United States and is living in another country now, I know about the challenges. And I'm in a Western European country, which, and the language here is sort of vaguely related to what the language is in the U.S., English. But I'm wondering, how have you found the culture shock in Georgia? And specifically, have you made an attempt to learn the language? Because Georgian to me seems like an immensely more difficult language to learn than Portuguese, and I'm having enough trouble learning Portuguese.
Yeah, there's no other language in the world like Georgian. So, even like Portuguese can be like a little bit similar to Spanish, which is a little bit similar to Italian and all of that sort of stuff. There is nothing similar to Georgian. It is just purely Georgian.
Yeah. Even Armenian, they're two separate languages. They're completely separated, different alphabets, everything.
So it is really difficult because it also has a lot of those sort of glottal noises, a lot of k's and like my voice just doesn't make a lot of those. So we have had a hard time with learning the language. I'd say we know like a lot of words, but putting them together in a sentence to have a conversation with someone, we're not at that level. But we're just very, very thankful that when we first came here in 2016, things were pretty tough and we did play charades a lot with people, just trying to figure out how to get around. But since then, they have been teaching English in the schools a lot more, which has made our life so much easier with just more and more people just knowing how to speak English. And I know it's really lazy on our behalf, but it just does make it so much easier that they're speaking English.
It's one of the hardest languages in the world to learn, along with like Finnish and Hungarian and a few other really, really hard languages. It is actually really hard.
And we did have a child, so we're just raising our own little interpreter right now.
So I see a lot about Tbilisi in online people talking about going there. It seems to be having a moment over the last few years, and I think it might be possible that a lot of this has to do with the digital nomad visa that's so easy to get in Georgia. Do you see that happening? Is it becoming a bit of an expat hotspot for folks from around the world?
I think it has been, and it probably will be again. I would actually say there's a bit of a lull in the digital nomad scene in the last year or two, mainly because of the Russian war. There was a bit of an influx of Russians coming through. So lots of immigration from Russia, of which quite a lot have actually left at this point, but there's still more here than there was before the war.
It's been a bit hard. It was like growing COVID. Growing Russian war. growing. So it sort of has had a few hiccups along the way. But yeah, it's a 1-year visa on arrival for a lot of passport holders. Not every country can get that, but a lot of people do get, they turn up, you get 1-year visa on arrival.
And then you can work here legally.
And you can work here on that visa. And also just to renew it, you just go across the border to Armenia, say hi to the Armenian passport control, and then walk back in the country again.
Yeah, and I should clarify, it is not a digital nomad visa. It is a visa-free entry on arrival for about 90 countries. I think it's 96 countries, including US and UK and EU, obviously. So yeah, it's definitely not a visa. You don't have to apply for it. You can pretty much just turn up. They might even give you a bottle of wine at passport control, and that's not a joke. I've had a bottle of wine at passport control at least 2 or 3 times now when coming into the country. So yeah, they hand you a little bottle of wine, like a mini bottle, and that's a welcome to Georgia thing. I don't know if they still do it now, but they were doing it before, so we've had that. So you don't have to apply for anything. If you're from those main countries, you don't have to apply at all. So it's even easier than people think.
You know, I hadn't considered that Russian folks would be coming into Georgia. I think probably mostly because, you know, Russia had annexed part of Georgia, and there's still a disputed area in Georgia that Russia is occupying. And I wouldn't think that Russians would want to go to Georgia. Here in Portugal, we've seen several folks from Georgia and Ukraine, or from Russia and Ukraine coming here, and they've opened restaurants and, integrated themselves into the community. But I didn't consider that Russians would go there, but, you know, it's close by. And, you know, when this war broke out, a lot of people were like, it is time to go. And, I guess they landed in Georgia too.
Well, or came across the land border. It was hectic chaos at the land border. But because Russia is one of the countries on that list of the 1-year visa-free on arrival, so they could come here very easily. And so they took that opportunity because not every Russian could get out of Russia. Some countries started instantly saying no or restricting who could come in, and Georgia didn't. So they pretty much let everyone in who they wanted to. I mean,
the locals definitely voiced their displeasure.
They were not happy about that amount of immigration.
The boost in the economy. I mean, Georgia's a very small country, and they can use the money. So it definitely did boost the economy.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Let's talk about food. Like I said, there's a Russian gentleman, a couple from Russia. They're actually from I think from Azerbaijan, maybe originally. But anyway, they lived in Moscow, and when the war started, they left, and they came to Portugal, our town, and opened a restaurant. And one thing that they do occasionally is they will make some Georgian dishes. And so that's very exciting here in Portugal, where we don't really have access to Georgian food very often. So I wanted to talk about some specific dishes, but before we get into that, I want to talk about this idea of Supras. And just kind of set the table and tell us, what is a Supras? What would we expect when we go to Georgia if we were to attend a Supras?
So the word Supra actually translates into English as tablecloth. So I've had conversations with locals about it, and I'm like, is it like when your mum says go to the cupboard and get the Supra, like you'll know what they're talking about, or would you think like to go and make a feast? But they apparently know what the difference is in the context. But it means tablecloth. And so what it is it's a big feast that Georgians have, whether it be after a wedding or a funeral. Or
just because it's Tuesday and everyone wants to meet up. You can just throw a Supra whenever you want. But certain events include a Supra for sure. I mean, a wedding or whatever, you'd have a Supra. It's not like you're not going to have one.
Yeah. So you would have basically a table just overloading with food. You'll do plates on top of plates on top of plates of different dishes. You will have one person whose responsibility is to be Tamada. And Tamada is the toastmaster. It's their job to make sure that not only do they give eloquent, well-spoken, thought-out toasts, but they also read the room, read the atmosphere and the people that are sitting at the table, and bring in their own personal stories and people's personal stories, just to sort of create this atmosphere of togetherness. And I don't know, it's a really magical experience to actually be at a Supra with an incredible Tamada. They will make you laugh, they will make you cry, it's this roller coaster of emotions. And it's this history in Georgia that they do this with their families so often. They sit around and they give toasts about things that they're thankful for. So usually it's like they'll give a toast. They're very religious here. They'll give a toast to God. They'll give a toast to peace, because this area has been invaded not just by the Russians, by many, many other surrounding enemies. Forever.
Yeah, it's just been invasion after invasion.
Yep, to peace. They also do toasts to children, because it's a very family-oriented culture as well, to women, to different things. And so it's just a night of sitting and eating and drinking and just sort of, I guess, being appreciative.
You're sharing every cultural and emotional part of human life with each other, with the people that are with you, in a very expressive way, in a way that not only the toastmaster, the Tamada, will actually give their thoughts, but then they can nominate someone else on the table to share, or you can request to share, and you can add your thoughts to the theme. It's like a massive philosophical discussion, but like every night of the week at someone's house, this is going on, and they're doing this.
They'll also drop in some traditional songs. They might get up and dance. It's a whole entertainment.
It's a celebration of humanity, all condensed into sort of a 5 to 6, 7, 8 hour plus marathon of eating and drinking wine. So it's quite a wild night. You can do short versions that are like 2 hours. I mean, you could do a version that's 1 hour. Anything could be a Supra if there's a Tamada, if there's bread, if there's wine, and the guests are there together at the table. So that's like the essential elements. You can make anything into a Supra. And just talking and celebrating the themes of humanity. So it's an amazing experience, really is.
I want to ask a question about this idea of a Tamada, because I've heard of this before, and people have told me, well, it's basically a Toastmaster. But listening to you, Tommo and Megsy, explain this, it sounds like it's so much more. This person seems to be more of like a master of ceremonies of sort.
It's, imagine if you rolled a master of ceremonies in with the best toast you've ever heard at a wedding, and then like someone who's also pretty much a poet and can also sing, and would sing songs with their family in between doing toasts. Roll all of that into one human being, and then have that repeat and repeat for like 8 or 9 hours, with other people in the table getting involved and sharing their thoughts on those toasts as well, to bring more out of those toasts because other people are speaking a little bit as well. And that's sort of what it is, which is why it's such an incredible thing to be a part of and to experience when someone's actually really good at it. Because not everyone's good at it. I got to say, I've had some Tamadars that are just like, yeah, peace. It'd be better if we weren't getting invaded right now. And then, stuff like this. They're just like, that's it. That's the toast. So you can have mediocre Supras, which are just people going like, well, it's a Supra, and I'm going to say a toast to peace for 10 seconds. Or you can have this incredible, almost transformative experience, I would say, for some of the ones that I've been to. They're just, completely changed my perspective on different topics and other things. It's just, fascinating. Really is fascinating.
How do you become a Tamada? Are you nominated? Do you learn this from your family? Is there a course that you can take to become certified as a Tamada? What's the process of this?
I mean, I think maybe the Georgians, if there was a certifiable course, they would probably be up in arms about that. That might be like a step too far. But it would be an interesting option for tourists to come and learn how to do it just for fun. No, you get nominated. So the person who's going to get nominated as Tamadar is normally either the person who's the head of the family, maybe it's the grandfather or something, or it's going to be the person who's just best at Tamadar. So whoever is at the dinner, if there's like 20 people at the dinner, one person's going to get nominated as Tamadar, and there's probably going to be some sort of consensus on the table that, well, Georgi, he's always great as Tamadar, let's have him as Tamadar because we'll all have a better night if he does it. Whereas if Levan does it, it's going to be boring as hell and we're all going to want to leave. So let's get Georgi to do it. And that's, it's sort of a semi-democratic thing. Aside from, there might be some traditions around, well, if the head of the family says, I'm doing it, then you go, okay, well, you're doing it, then aren't you? But other than that, it's a bit democratic.
Megsy, are women ever Tamadas?
Absolutely. Yeah, as Tom mentioned before, that even if it's just two people sitting at a table with wine and bread, one of those people will nominate themselves as Tamada, and they will do the standard toasts, like at least the first three that I mentioned before. And male or female, while it is predominantly male-led, you can absolutely have a female toastmaster because that person is the most like eloquent, poetic, philosophical. They as Tom said, they just do a better job at it. So you can have female toastmasters, Tamadas, but a lot of the time you will find that it's probably a man because the women here are pretty darn good at cooking, and they will be cooking up a storm.
Nice.
So,
well, let's talk about a few of the things that they're cooking up, and I want to go through this list of all these great Georgian dishes. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk about all of them. And first on the list is this thing that, if anyone knows one thing about Georgian cuisine, it's the khachapuri, which is the boat-shaped bread that's filled with cheese and topped with an egg. Even me, who hasn't had a lot of Georgian cuisine, has had the khachapuri before. Talk about this dish, what makes it special, and any cultural significance maybe it has as well.
Well, the khachapuri that you're describing is only one type of khachapuri, the most famous khachapuri, which is a khachapuri acharuli, which is from western Georgia, the region of Ajara. And this is the boat-shaped one that's just overloaded with this sort of cottage cheese-style sort of curds and egg on top. But if you said that that's khachapuri to most Georgians, they'd be like, hang on, what about my regional khachapuri? It's all khachapuri,
well, honestly,
it's not just that one.
The most popular khachapuri in Georgia is the Imeretian khachapuri.
Yes.
That's what you would eat from a day to day. You'd go to the shop and you pick yourself up an Imeretian khachapuri. Imereti is a different region, again, of Georgia. It just happens that the acharuli is just incredibly Instagrammable.
Yeah, it's the prettiest looking one. It's very easy to share photos and people go, wow, I want to eat that.
But day to day, it would be the other styles of khachapuri. There's a Megrelian khachapuri. There's
Gurian khachapuri, which has eggs,
Yep.
eggs and cheese in it. Ossetian khachapuri has potato and cheese in it. And the Imeretian is sort of the most simple. It just has cheese inside, and it's sort of like a flat, round disc with just a layer of cheese inside. Whereas a Megrelian khachapuri is the same as Imeretian almost, but then the top is covered with grated cheese, so it goes all crispy on top. So it's less just of a bread, and it's more like a double cheese bread.
Yeah.
And then you can triple cheese that, because what they do is with the Megrelian one, after they've sort of browned off the top a little bit and got these crispy bits of cheese on there, they then just throw slabs of more cheese on and put it back in the oven for a few minutes to just go a little bit melty. So you've got like gooey cheese, crispy cheese, and cheese curds inside. It's just a cheese bonanza. It's amazing.
Georgia is not a fan of those with lactose intolerance.
No, there's a lot of dairy here. It is quite a mountainous area. Lots of different mountain parts
but
here.
It is yum.
Yeah. So there's lots of different khachapuris. They're all made from wheat flour. That's sort of like the main characteristic. And khacha and puri is basically, khacha is like this cheese curd style cottage cheese, and puri just means bread. So it's a curd bread basically. Curd might not be the right translation word for the exact type of cheese, but it's that sort of texture, just to give people an idea who are listening to this, because it's hard to explain.
Chewy-ish?
If you eat cottage cheese, you know what the texture of cottage cheese is, but it's a little different from that and can be a little sour. Often a little sourness to that sort of cheese they really like in this flavor. So yeah, we could talk about cheesy bread forever, but I know we've got a lot of dishes to go on about, and that maybe that's enough. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering one more thing about khachapuri. Would this be a dish that would be something we would order in a restaurant? Would it be something that's more street food, maybe a kiosk or a pop-up, or something that's made exclusively in homes? Where would we get it?
All of the above.
Okay.
Everything.
The Ajaruli
everywhere.
would be at a restaurant, maybe at a home if you were in the Ajaran region. But the main one, the Imeretian that we spoke of, or even the Megrelian, you'll find them at like little street food stalls. It's like a kiosk, like you said.
Yeah,
Kiosks,
but also in restaurants and also in
family homes.
Every home. Yeah, because it's so simple to make. Essentially, they roll out the bread quite big. They put a massive ball of cheese in the middle, and then they fold the top of the bread over that. They turn it over, and then they roll it out again. And that's it. It's so simple to make, but yet so delicious.
We actually had a friend come and bring us some wine the other day from his winery. And not only did he turn up with the wine, but his mother made us 3 giant khachapuris. Because, of course, you can't turn up to someone's house empty-handed with just wine. So she sent 3 still warm khachapuris to our front door.
Oh, man. It sounds like heaven, really.
It is good.
So you said puri means bread in the khachapuri, and you said that it's always wheat bread. If I just want puri, if I'm just going to get bread, my staple, my pan, would this also be wheat bread? And what kind of different breads would we look for in the market?
Yeah, so if you're going for a classic Georgian bread, tonas puri, which is a puri bread made in the tone oven, which is a bit like a sort of tandoori oven style, a bit bigger, a bit wider, normally made from like clay. It's a little bit different from this classic tandoori ovens. And that bread is made in different shapes, once again, depending on what region you're in. But just like you'd make a naan bread by sticking it to the inside of this sort of circular oven, you also sort of roll out the dough and then you stick it to the inside of the oven and it bakes in there. And so that's a very simple, just yeast, flour, water, salt. And for me, it's one of the best breads in the world because it's so simple. It's up there with baguettes, in my opinion. I think they're just like some of the most amazing breads that you can get. And it's the salty end of the spectrum. So if you're a bit of a salt fiend, you're going to love Georgian bread. And it goes sort of nice and crispy around the outside, but stays soft in the middle. And it's always fresh. You can go like any time from sort of like 9 a.m. until like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. and you'll be getting something that was made within the last hour or so. They're just baking constantly all day. They don't do it all at 1 in the morning and then stop. It just goes all the time, almost always warm when you pick it up. So, yeah, delicious. You can't really get home with one. You normally have to buy 2 because you'll have eaten most of one before you walk home.
Yes,
yeah,
the best.
It's great bread.
And is there any other kinds of bread besides wheat-based breads? I know I like to make at home. I often make a buckwheat flatbread, but I'm wondering if there's any other kind of breads that would be popular in Georgia, or is it strictly these whole wheat breads?
No, they actually make corn breads as well. So you'd get something called machadi. But that's more of like a bit of a fried sort of bread.
Well, they can do it on the flat pan.
Oh, yeah, in Emirati they do.
But with some oil sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends. Some people have different preferences on how they do it. They don't normally deep fry it or anything like that. It's like on the flat pan, maybe with oil or maybe just dry. So the cornbread is relatively dense compared to flour bread, of course, like wheat flour. But they're very popular, especially in Western Georgia, which is more corn focused. And that dish would be served with starters. We can talk about some of the other dishes you'd serve it with later, or it could be served by itself. And also they blend that cornbread dough with cheese, surprise, surprise, to make chivishtari, which is like a cheese cornbread. So it's just every time you bite into it, you've got a little bit of ooziness of cheese inside. It's sort of like a arancini sort of style. Every time you bite in, you've just got something in there. So that's fantastic as well. So yeah, you can't escape the cheese, and I wouldn't want to. It's too good.
I don't think of Georgia as a corn-growing region. I think of it as more mountainous, but maybe as we get into western Georgia, it's flatter and they grow corn. Is that the idea there?
There is quite a lot of corn grown here, yeah. I mean, after wheat, it's a significant crop. And a lot of the wheat that they have here is imported from Russia and Ukraine anyway. It's not like they're growing loads and loads of wheat. But if you wanted to get really nerdy about wheat, which we won't have time to do, they have some ancient grains here. Doli, I think, is one of the names. I can't remember all the names off the top of my head. These ancient grains are actually endemic to Georgia, so they're not the same wheat variety that we have around the world, the famous ones that are, made en masse. These are some small local varieties that they can also make local bread with. But wheat flour, regular wheat flour, is so cheap that the majority of food is made from that because the country still has an economy that's not that strong. So it's not like everyone's walking around having super expensive artisan breads all the time. Unfortunately, that's not so much of an option at this point. But it's happening. It's like more and more experimentation with different wheat varieties and such is happening at the moment.
Let's talk about another dish. This one is called pikali, I think is the pronunciation. I'm going to struggle with this.
Pikali? With a P? Pikali?
P, yeah.
Yeah, pikali. This is one of the sounds that we find it very hard to make.
Yeah, I mean, with a P, it goes PKH. I mean, that's a word you look at and you go, there needs to be a vowel in there somewhere, but there's not in the Georgian language.
You'd think. No, they don't need vowels. They have some. But yeah, there's a lot of consonants stacked together in Georgian for sure.
Yeah, so...
Meg, do you want to talk about pikali?
Yeah, so pikali is generally, you'd have it as like a starter. So I sort of like to refer to it as almost like Georgian dips. But
vegetable pate is another way you could describe it.
Pate. So what you'll get is a seasonal vegetable, and they mix that because they do, walnuts are everywhere here, and they do a lot of cooking and a lot of different things with walnuts. So they grind it together with walnuts. So you get things like leek is a popular one, spinach, beetroot,
pumpkin.
Sometimes you can get green bean, pikali. If it's like really obscure, there's one called like akala. You can, which is it's the spinach, a cousin of spinach almost. And so they sort of come out generally as like these balls, and they might have some pomegranates on top. And generally, you would grab your bread, and then you would just sort of slather it onto bread and shove it in your mouth and enjoy the flavors.
Yeah, normally with cornbread is like the more traditional, but you can have it with wheat bread as well. And this is like a West Georgian tradition that's definitely become a national everywhere tradition. You can get this dish everywhere. It's really, really popular. Yeah. And it's just, the addition of walnuts to this gives it that nice density and texture. It's not just baby food where it's just some mashed up vegetables, all of the spices that are thrown in. Maybe you've got some, salt and some garlic and maybe some fenugreek and a few other different things. Red wine vinegar often is put in.
I should specify it is served cold.
Yeah, these are all served cold.
A cold sort of starter.
Raw cold as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with spinach they cook it, but yeah, and they make one with carrot. They might cook it beforehand as well. But yeah, a lot of the vegetables could be used raw as well.
Would this come at the beginning of a meal?
Yeah, exactly. So you can have that, and on the side you might have like a Georgian salad, but those two would be generally the beginning of the meal. You'd have the pikali and some bread, and then you'd have like a Georgian salad with cucumber, tomato, and also they do a walnut paste that they mix through their salads as well. So it's the thing that you can try and pretend that you're being healthy before things get really cheesy and calorific. but also with all the walnuts in it, it's not quite so healthy anyway. Like, it's healthy, but it's calorific.
And all that bread too.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's hard to. I don't know how the Georgians are so skinny. I'm certainly not managing.
Not all
it.
of them are.
Let's talk about another dish, which is, I know you guys, I listened to your podcast, and I know you guys had trouble pronouncing this one, so I'm not going to feel bad about my mispronunciation. Badrijani Nigvid.
I can never pronounce the...
I know. One of our drivers said it to me the other day, and he said it's so simple. He's like, "Why can't you pronounce it, Meg? It's just blah 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 blah." And I was like,
"This is like 10 consonants in a row."
It just doesn't sink into my head how to say it. But yeah, basically, it's eggplant rolls. So they've sliced eggplant, and I will just mention, Georgia is this really unique place that people come here hating eggplant and leave loving it.
Yeah.
So if you're not an eggplant lover or courgette, is it courgette or what's the other word for it?
No, it's eggplant or aubergine in England.
Aubergine for other people. They slice it really thinly, and then they fry the eggplant pieces, and then they take that walnut paste that they use and they roll them into these little rolls. Once again, they'll put like sprinkling of pomegranate on the top, and it's just seasoned and cooked so perfectly. Sometimes they can put garlic in it as well.
Yeah.
I find the garlic a little too intense.
Sometimes they do a full garlic one that doesn't have walnut paste and it's just all garlic, and that's a bit intense for me. Yeah.
No vampires here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. Some people will try it and it'll just be instantly their absolute favorite dish. So even if you're not an eggplant lover, this dish, you got to give it a try, because so many people walk away going, that is sensational.
Yeah, and if you want an easier way to get this ordered rather than trying to pronounce the Georgian name, which is very hard, you can just say eggplant walnut, like an eggplant walnut starter, eggplant walnut rolls.
Eggplant rolls.
They'll understand what you're talking about, because this is almost every restaurant has this, and most homes they make these like every week at some point as well. Yeah, it's very, very, very popular dish.
Well, luckily, I'm a huge eggplant fan, so I would love to try that. I like it all kinds of different ways, rolled up, eggplant parm. I love making little eggplant balls. I'll roast them and then grind them up into a paste with the garlic and some other spices and breadcrumbs, and roll them into balls and make little meatless meatballs out of them. So I'm a big eggplant fan. I think I would love this dish. It sounds awesome.
Yep. For sure.
Speaking of eggplant, let me ask you about ajapsandali.
Ajapsandali. Easier to pronounce than it looks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an easier one. Yeah, it just maybe looks a bit crazy on the page. So this can be made in a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's served hot, sometimes it's served cold. The sort of easy way to explain it for foreigners is like Georgian ratatouille. So it doesn't have zucchini in, though. It's normally just eggplant, peppers, tomatoes, a bit of onion, garlic, of course. Sometimes people make it with chunks of potato in as well, but not always. And yeah, this is often served as a starter sort of dish, but yeah, occasionally served hot as a sort of main course dish for vegetarians. Very tasty, very straightforward dish. That's it really. There's not really like a story to this one either. I don't think it's just.
No, it's just delicious.
Yeah,
Try
it's just tasty. Yeah.
I like the sound of it. Well, the last dish I want to ask you about is definitely one of the most popular, one of the best in Georgia, and that's khinkali, the famous filled soup dumplings.
I think I could live the rest of my life eating khinkali and be a very happy person. It's not something I could ever get tired of. So, they are. The main one that you will get is it's a meat mixture inside that is usually part pork, part beef. And then they have some other herbs and stuff that they'll add into it. There's certain mountain ones and then that have different herbs in, and then there's like other different ones that don't have any herbs in it. So it all depends on what you're looking for if you're a herb person. But you can also get cheese ones, which I love. You can get potato and cheese ones. You can get mushroom ones.
Yeah, the vegan version.
Yep.
The mushroom one.
They have branched out, so they're pretty much the standards, and then they have branched out, and you can get all manner of quirky things inside.
Dessert
khinkali.
Ones with cherries in, I've seen, which is I don't know, is it an atrocity or is it an inspiration? I haven't decided yet.
It's just something different, isn't it?
Yeah,
Experimentation's always cool,
traditional.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting.
But yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people come here and then they try and eat the dumplings with a knife and fork, which is absolute blasphemy. You cannot do that because all of that beautiful liquid will just go all over your plate. So the aim is you take a bite if it's not too hot. Everything's done with your hands. No cutlery. Keep it away. So you pick it up with your hands and you take a bite into it. And then you slurp out that soupy, juicy insides. And once you've slurped that all out, and then you just eat the rest of it, except for the nub that you hang on to with your hands. That's meant to be put on your plate so you can either see how many khinkali you've eaten or, so if you're beating your friends to try and see who can eat the most, if you're in for a competition for how many khinkali you can eat in one night. But that's the standard way that you eat a khinkali, and they come out piping hot, and it's my favorite Georgian
and
dish.
They're big as well. I think maybe if you'd seen them online or something, you may not realize
the size
without
of a
context.
Human palm sometimes.
Well, yeah, it would go on your whole palm almost. Some of the bigger ones, but it's definitely the size of like a 4-year-old's fist or bigger. Maybe like a 9-year-old's fist, I reckon. And so, yeah, and you've got to fold them when you make it. So if hopefully most people listening have seen a photo of this because it might be difficult to understand otherwise. But yeah, you fold them like concertina, the top part to seal it. And then the meat is sealed in the bottom, and then the top turns into this big, thick nub. And different people have different opinions, but they say that maybe you have to do 19 folds to be a proper professional khinkali maker. Maybe. And then squeeze that together, and then you boil it. These are boiled, not steamed. They boil them for about 12 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. And then you eat them. You just eat all of them.
Sprinkled with pepper.
Yes, black pepper.
I love foods that have a specific technique to them. And I also love foods that are extremely sloppy. So this brings up both of those things in the same place, because I imagine the first time you get a tourist on one of your tours trying one of these, it can turn into a bit of a messy disaster, which, is part of the fun of it, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, I love making fun of people for getting it wrong. but eventually, I think most people... Yeah, exactly. You mess up the first one and then you figure it out pretty quickly. Also, another thing, a tradition in Georgia is they will just change your plate quite frequently. People do freak out about it because we're all used to having the same plate throughout an entire meal. But if things do get too messy, they'll come around and they'll switch that plate out and you'll get a clean plate and you can keep going. So you don't have to worry about having just this plate of juices and misery of your failures in eating khinkali. They'll whip it away and then you can just start afresh.
Nice. Well, before we finish up this talk about Georgian dishes, I did want to ask you if folks are visiting and they go to Tbilisi, where would you recommend? Give me one or maybe two recommendations of places where they can go to try some of this great Georgian cuisine. Maybe a high-end place and maybe a hole-in-the-wall place.
Oh, interesting. High-end places don't serve khinkali.
Yeah.
Unless a couple of them serve really fancy khinkali, yeah.
Okay.
So I think for just an everyday place that is always consistently good, I'd probably go to Georgian House. It's a little bit out of the main center, but it's only a 10-minute taxi ride out of the main old town. And just everything they make is great. You can't really go wrong at that place. Super reasonable prices as well. So you can easily feed everybody around the table with wine for, I don't know, $20 per person or something.
Yeah, and everything we've mentioned today is on their menu, plus more.
Yeah, they have so many. They have a few unusual dishes like Gurian chicken stew in walnut paste. That's a little different that most places don't serve. So I definitely go there. For high end, for this sort of food, you don't go to high end for this sort of food.
You can go to King and Bird. They've got some interesting khinkali.
King and the Bird is sort of a next level just above,
yeah,
but not really. There's no fine dining really in this category for these sorts of foods. We take guests out of the city to Giuani Winery, which they're doing a modern Georgian cuisine. That's really, really fantastic. That's about an hour's drive outside of the city, and they do lots of modern twists on traditional foods. You might want to go Nina's Garden, which is just on the other side of the river from the old town and up a little bit. Chveni also.
Ethnographer,
But that's more just traditional, but done really well. So yeah, there's a whole bunch
Anyway.
of different names. Yeah, sorry.
1 and 2, and you get 10.
I'd say Ninja's Garden are doing like really nice presentation and modern versions of traditional cuisine as well. But yeah, fine dining level, I couldn't pull any name out. Barbaristan at a stretch, you could say, is definitely fine dining service, and the dishes are very interesting. You're not going to get kinkali there normally. That's not the sort of food that they do. But yeah, Barbaristan is one that's very famous for being like the higher end of historic Georgian cuisine. Really interesting, if we've got 30 seconds to tell you their history. They found an old recipe book from like 1902 in the flea market, and they decided to open a restaurant based entirely off the recipes from this 1902 book.
Whoa.
And that's what they did. So you can go and taste these. Just the entire menu is sort of based around this old recipe book that they found, which is quite a rarity. So it's a very interesting place. And yeah, fine dining level sort of service where, you know, they all stand there around you with the plates and they all put the plates down at exactly the same time. And yeah, so that sort of thing. More casual fine dining, but yeah, that's probably the closest thing for Georgian fine dining you could do in Tbilisi, I'd say.
Sounds incredible. Tommo and Megsy, it's been great talking to you, but we got to talk Georgian wine, and I think we're running short of time here. So how about coming back next week? Let's do another episode just about Georgian wine, because it's such a massive topic. I don't want to give it the short shrift.
Yeah, 8,000 years of history, there's a lot to talk about. And what have we got? 525 endemic grapes at least, and they keep discovering new ones. So there's a lot of wine to talk about that most people will never even have heard of before.
Tommo Williams from Eat This Food and Wine Tours, and Megsy from Food Fun Travel. We'll have links to your websites in the show description. But thanks for coming on the show this week. Can't wait to talk to you next week.
Great. Thanks, Brent. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Okay, that's Tommo and Megsy. You can reach Tommo at eatthistours.com and Megsy at foodfuntravel.com. Tommo and Megsy also host the Tbilisi podcast, which is essential if you're planning a trip to Georgia or if you're just interested in Georgian cuisine. I've got links to all their stuff in the show notes. And Georgia sounds amazing, doesn't it? Like I said, we're going to have Tommo and Megsy back next week. We're going to talk about the wine of Georgia and their 8,000-year winemaking tradition. 8,000 years. So you don't want to miss that show. Until then, get over to destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a brand new story. It's about a painting that may or may not be by Michelangelo, and it's hidden in a church in Spain. Read that at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. There's also a brand new video out about a beach town in Portugal that is the only world surfing reserve in all of Europe. Of course, we're trying tons of food when we go there and watching the waves. You can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel at Destination Eat Drink 946. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I will see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.